All right, folks, it is time. We're going to go ahead and start the monthly meeting for March of the Environmental Concerns Committee. We're going to do first a check on the live streaming. Justin, do you know if we're up? Okay. We'll come back and make sure that is live, but let's do a roll call first, and we'll come back and check live stream. Start over here with Thomas.
Thomas Dewhurst, member.
Dave DeBack, member.
John Cruiser, member.
David Benak, chair.
Rachel Yondel, member.
Rita Chandler, member.
Luke Zimmer, member.
Welcome to the community, Luke. Good to see you here. Okay, how's that live streaming? We're up? Thank you. Okay, we have an agenda that you should have all received from Justin. There is one addition I'd like to make to that. In unfinished business, I'd like to pick back up our discussion about committee structures. Are there any other thoughts on the agenda? If nobody, or if I can get a motion to approve the agenda with that slight addition?
I will motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're good. So we have minutes. We've also had a chance to look at those via email. If I can get any discussion or motion on those.
Were they included with the agenda, Justin, or was it a previous email? Because I'm just not seeing them.
Doing the link that I sent in the packet, the agenda packet.
Oh. For me, it says no attached file for the minutes. So I might just be looking in the wrong spot.
I have the same thing, no attachment in file for approval of meeting minutes.
So I would suggest that we just punt those to next month's meeting, and we'll have a chance to approve this month's and last month's. Do I have a motion for that?
Yeah, motion to look at both this month and last month's minutes at the next meeting.
I will second that.
Any discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's see, discussion of any comments. I've gotten a couple comments about the metal fire, but I know we'll have some people in the audience to talk about that. So I think I'll just hold that. Anybody else have any communications? Okay, so then what we're going to do next is we have time for public comments. We good?
Yeah, it's emailed to the board on February 26th.
Okay, but we didn't, yeah, we will still look at those next month. Okay, public comments. What we do here, we'll have public comment period now, and then we'll have a public comment period at the end of the meeting. So anyone who is calling in, that number is 1-888-382-9556. I'll read that one more time, 1-888-382-9556. And while we check those phone lines and give people a moment to dial in, I feel like it's a telethon, we'll make some space for people who are in the audience to approach and make comments. So, go ahead. You can wrestle for it.
My name is Molly Mechtenberg, and I live in the East Side neighborhood, Kalamazoo, so on Phelps Avenue. And what was the date of the fire? March 10th. So just last week, the whole neighborhood was outside watching these huge flames from Kalamazoo Metal Recyclers. And a lot of concern in the neighborhood as the evening wore on and they were black smoke billowing from the site. I know that the fire burned for about 10 hours, and in the morning, because we do have an air quality monitor at our house, the levels of the AQI was very high, was dangerously high in our neighborhood. So my concern is really what was burning, like what was this pile of debris, who's monitoring the piles of debris at Kalamazoo Metal Recyclers. I guess I would just, there weren't really any answers provided after the incident. My whole thing is how can we prevent this from happening again? And so it was reported that there was combustible materials, and if these pile up, sometimes they self-combust or however it happened, but it seems like this is something that could have been prevented with proper monitoring and compliance from the company and following rules to prevent stuff like this, right? So I guess that's my main issue, is just who is keeping an eye on this industry and the other industries along the river. We're just using this because this is the incident that happened, but there are other industries along the river. Who's monitoring them? Who's checking these piles of debris? Who's ensuring that they're complying and following the rules? And how can we prevent this from happening again? That's my biggest question today that I want to put to the committee. So thank you, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I know that some of you are going to another event, so you may not be able to stay till the end, but this is live streamed, so you'll be able to come back and catch it and catch our discussion if you're not able to stay through that point. Do we have, yeah, go ahead.
My name is Jen DeWale. I live on the east side next to Molly, and we are part of the Peace House community. And I, again, have a lot of concerns about the fire, have a lot of questions, and mostly want to know how much accountability does Kalamazoo Metal Recycling have to the city? I understand that Eagle is there and monitoring regularly, but is there any sort of liaison to industry that the city has where citizens could get information like real time, but also like historically? I feel very strongly that Kalamazoo is a river city, and that is completely understood. People kind of forget about the river, and people take advantage of the fact that we live on a river, like industries take advantage of that. And so I feel like the river is a huge benefit and something that Kalamazoo could really be taking advantage of and making a much bigger deal for the citizens, make it a calling card to come to Kalamazoo. And why are we still having industries right on the river? That feels like something that was done in like the 1930s through, but not till now. Like, we know better, and it does not feel like there should be industries on the city. I also have questions about how big is Kalamazoo Metal Recycling's retaining pond? So 1.3 million gallons of water were used in the fire to put out the fire. Does their retaining pond hold 1.3 million gallons of water, or did the overflow go into the river? I know that Eagle has a list of things that they're monitoring, but does the city have access to what was in that pile? I heard lithium-ion batteries, they're car parts that could not be crushed, so there's like vinyl seating, there's all sorts of random things in there, and is there like a list of things that was going up in smoke? And also, like Molly said, how can this be prevented from happening? I heard many times in speaking with neighbors, but also city officials that like, yeah, this happens every summer and, you know, it's kind of something that happens. And that's not okay. You know, like that does not seem like a city that anybody would want to live in where it's just kind of the thing that this catches on fire every summer. I understand that this was a much bigger one, but, and then I also want to know what sort of follow-up is going to happen with residents downwind, because people are already reporting about sore throats. And on Reddit, the supervisor, the owner of Kalamazoo Metal Recycling went on and said, Kalamazoo is a city of anxious people, and people get sore throats all the time. So that feels like somebody who feels like they can get away with things and is not reporting to people coming through them. I don't think we should be okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amy Kuritsky, and I'm a PhD student, and I study air pollution, and came with Molly and Jen. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the emergency response that happened after the fire, and like potentially things that the city and the state could think about for next time. And so I know that there was like a press release afterward that went to a bunch of different news sources that talked about looking at the PM 2.5 levels. Like you can see the monitor that was at Peace House and how levels had gone down, and so there was no longer a concern. And they talked about looking at the river to see if there's an oil sheen, which feels like quite the bare minimum. I think an issue with looking at the PM 2.5 levels is that that's like a big, broad category of things that are in the air. And so it could be like soot from the fire and that's gone down, but the actual like speciated what's in that mixture really matters. Like if it's heavy metals, for example, that would be particularly problematic. And then there's other things that would come like volatile organic compounds that might not be captured in PM 2.5. And so I wonder if there could be like an emergency response where you're taking air samples, water samples in the moment, and then you have time to go back and analyze them, especially if like residents are reporting health effects over time, like Jen was talking about, to be able to have that sample already so you can get retroactively what was in the air and the water at that time. And my other question would be just like, is there a way to notify residents? Like for example, if they see that there's a fire, but they don't have a air monitor themselves or don't know how to access that information. And I was talking actually just by chance today to someone at the Kalamazoo Township, and they have an app that they use to like communicate with residents. I think not so much about things like this, but I just wonder like what that plan could look like in place to inform residents. So even like maybe PM 2.5 levels have gone down, but if your kid has asthma, that would be a really different risk calculation than if you were just like an everyday resident. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Those are great questions, really important points. And we have one more person. Do you want to, Katie? Yeah. Do you want to just introduce yourself? Because you've sent emails, so we all at least know you digitally.
Hi, I'm Katie Meyer-Tepper, and I am kind of a, honorary member of this committee, so I'm really excited about this. I have my degree in environmental biology and zoology from Michigan State University, and I did my internship with the Department of Environmental Quality, focusing with the executive level for environmental education. And then I'm really active with Oshtemo Township, mainly pointing out every environmental issue that we're having over there. We don't have an environmental committee in Oshtemo, so that's something that we're trying to bring forth. And yeah, so hello. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So for those of you who may not remember, and I know you're new, Katie has emailed about being on the committee, but because she's not a city resident, she's not eligible, but she's gonna come in periodically and share her knowledge with us. Okay, while we had the in-person comments, did we get anything on the phone lines? No? No calls. Okay. We won't directly address your comments now. Those are all, but we will come back around to those. So thank you for coming in. All right, that takes us to our series of reports, and we'll see. Oh, sorry. Oh, so let's do that in new business? Okay. So we do. Oh, okay. We're going to sneak something else into new business to have a vote to make Katie an associate member, which makes her on the rolls as a committee member, but without voting privileges. So we'll do that in new business. Okay, reports. Let's see what we have. NFP.
Yeah, the last natural features review meeting was basically focused on the election of officers, and Frederickson was approved as chair. She is a landscape architect, and Stempel was approved as vice chair, and he is an arborist. They also presented the NFP annual report, which basically stated that the NFP is a zoning overlay, which has a set of zoning standards applied to a property in conjunction with the existing zoning standards from the base or underlining zoning district. And again, to be redundant, the intent of the NFP, and I think this is really important moving forward, is to protect natural features in the city of Kalamazoo, specifically wetlands, water resources, trees, woodlands, floodplains, slopes, natural heritage areas, rare species, and habitat corridors. It's also to guide development, balancing growth and redevelopment with the protection of our existing features. And the last thing it said was to create site designs that are responsive to the existing natural features and minimize impacts to the extent possible. And I found that kind of intriguing that the word extent possible was basically about the only thing that was in bold. And I would encourage everyone to review the NFP overlay and Zoning Board of Appeals. These boards have some leverage to guide new development, and most importantly, which is what their purpose is to help protect our natural features, which really is vital to our future. And let's encourage them to continue to push the protection of these things instead of sometimes encouraging development.
Very good. And the one thing you mentioned about it, the purpose being important. Do you want to give us context for why that particular language was a big deal?
The purpose of preserving?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to speak personally and with some, I think quite a few members of our community, is I think we should really start trying to redefine what value is. There seems to be a lot of value predominantly placed on economic development. We're in 2025. The cities came out with the sustainability plan, climate crisis plan, but sometimes it seems that the environmental concerns and the focus on our natural areas seems to be certainly less valuable than economic development.
Thank you. Okay, let's, Rita, you're next with air and water quality. I'm assuming some of that's going to touch on the fire. So if you have anything other than the fire, because I want to put all the fire stuff in one place, so other comments?
I'll start with the gap analysis conducted by Dr. Benny Girdler, who is on the 269 air quality team at the Institute of Public Scholarship. I have shared this document among the members here, and it's also available at our website, 269airquality.weebly.com, and it's located on the monitoring and data page. I don't know if you have a Microsoft browser, but I do, and it says that it is not available as a PDF format on the website, but if you do click that small little link, you will be able to view it that way if you run into that issue as well. Just to summarize, the gap analysis, it was completed for the city of Kalamazoo. We really just focused on the purple air monitors, and we highlighted monitors that have been working throughout time and space consistently from October 2024 to October 2025. And through that, we also reviewed the 22 city neighborhoods that are recognized from the city of Kalamazoo. We focused on census data and compiled locations in which populations or groups of people would be at risk based on historical and current research-based literature reviews. And so just to share what we found putting it all together for the census tracts and vulnerable populations in Kalamazoo, we highlighted high-density areas for people under the age of 5, high-density areas for people over the age of 65, high-density areas for Black residents, and high-density areas for the income medium income below $44,296. And nearly all of Kalamazoo was highlighted. And that map is available again on the PDF. Oh, yes, yes. Yep, he's showing the map. Okay, sweet. So if you continue to go through that, you'll find it's slide 24 highlights the putting it all together and where there are some vulnerable populations in the city of Kalamazoo and where monitor placement would be best placed. And we did talk about it at the last Kickback and Breathe, and seeing a few people in the audience who attended, thank you. And yeah, if any feedback, if anyone, any resident, anyone has feedback about this slide and would like to contribute to the conversation, I'd be happy to share my email. Do I share it? Okay, yeah. All right, well, it's Rita, R-E-E-T-A, Chandler, CHANDLER, theinstitute@gmail.com. So you can reach me there.
Thank you. Great report up there. Any questions for Rita? All right, then let's go ahead and keep moving. Next is wildlife and natural resources protection. David.
I have nothing.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I did notice, was it yesterday or today? Yes, thank you. Yesterday or today, there was somebody that sent us an email about the deer population. I don't have it pulled up, but it is something that we're going to be addressing, but, and it was just a general letter of concern, but we're going to have to be addressing that, I think, pretty soon. And in fact, on that topic, are we going to move forward on assignments for some of these subcommittees? And if so, would something like that be something that you envision starting to tackle specific issues?
Yeah, my hope with that is, so we'll come back to looking at what a scale, like a small, more compact list of committees that are broader in scope, so we don't have so many. And then hopefully we can, each of those committees can, identify one or two things that they really think they can accomplish in a year and bring to the committee so we can move forward more productively rather than just trying to tread water.
All right, great. Yeah, other than that, I'm looking forward right now, and I cannot find it. I meant to set it aside, and I think what I ended up doing was hiding it from myself. No, I'm sorry, here it is. It was yesterday from Rick Zeiterman, and it's just a general question as to what can or what is and what can be done, and asked us to take a look at Cedar Rapids in Iowa, where they've been for 25 years controlling population. So, but anyway, that is something that I look forward to an assignment on.
Yeah, we'll talk some more about that. Without going too far down, I really think that we need to think very carefully about culling, because that's a treadmill. You see the 25-year record of let's just keep killing deer every year, because it doesn't reduce the population past 1 year. They just spring back. Exclusion needs to be considered. Okay, moving forward, planning committee, or commission, sorry.
Yes, so normally the Planning Commission meets the first week of the month. They pushed back their meeting to next week, so I don't have a report at this time. I'll have more next month.
Tree committee.
We did not meet this month, so I have no updates to share with the committee.
Moving fast. Asylum Lake.
Absolutely nothing there. That is now sent to the, can't remember what the Western and the county are still trying to hammer out the details as to whether or not the county will step in and take over. But that's still in the development process.
Okay. And on the, go ahead.
We talked about that last time, and I believe that we came up with a statement that was going to be presented to the city commissioners in regards to requesting that there be a seat available within the Kalamazoo County Parks Department, specifically designated for some type of community member board that would help monitor and provide insight in regards to Asylum Lake. Justin, did that happen, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, that motion was passed, and the city commission will hear your recommendation. Yeah, there's a draft out there, and then once that draft's approved, we'll get it over.
Do you know when the city will hear that?
Once I get sign off on the draft that I put together from you all, I'll send it over to the city commission.
Okay, yeah, so Justin did send that draft. I read that as comment if you have comments. No comment means go ahead.
All right, I'll send it up tomorrow.
First, anybody have any comments on the draft that Justin sent around while we've got it?
No.
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, then keep moving along. Parks and Rec. Yeah, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Recs, there's not a whole lot there. They did provide they did say that the improvements to Millen Park are continuing. They did approve, the City Commission approved a budget for updating Verberg Park playground equipment and some improvements with the Homer Stryker facility, and they did mention that there is an upcoming design meeting for neighborhoods. I failed to get the specific dates and locations, and there was some discussion about continued outreach for potential park adoptees and identifying some parks that are suitable for additional community involvement, such as community gardens. And so again, I would really encourage people to get involved. There's a lot of things that are happening. I don't know how many people are really aware of it, but you know, we need to get involved and participate in these things and make it happen.
Thank you. Let's see. That takes us to Watershed Kalamazoo River Watershed Council. They're doing great work with their new director. Nothing too terribly worthy of note at the moment. Then that's the Odor Task Force. No meeting there. Then that's to Native Species and Urban Landscape. Rachel.
We will be having our first meeting next month.
Excellent. Justin, I have sustainability updates here. Do you want to do those here, or do we want to put them?
I can do those with the report, the greenhouse gas report for 2024.
Okay. Then let's move to unfinished business. There are several things there. Let's If people are okay with it, let's handle the suggestion that we started talking about for the committee structure last week. I don't know, hopefully people still have that available. Do we have any feedback on that? Can we move forward with that today, or do we need to continue to discuss that?
Well, I didn't,
For creating a new committee structure.
oh, no, I don't, no.
Okay, I can resend that to everybody. I remember we talked a little bit about this last month, proposed some new subcommittees to create a smoother report structure. So I will resend that. Luke, are you now on our ECC mailing list? Excellent. Okay, so you'll get that as well. I'm going to make a note to resend that. Okay, so Justin, if you can make sure we get that on unfinished business for next month. Thank you. Okay, so then we had some of the other things that were carried over. We've got NFP property discussion, green space preservation, and city sustainability report. Let's handle city sustainability report first because those other two are pretty open-ended discussions.
All right. Yeah, so broadly, I gave this report to the City Commission last month, but just wanted to go over it with you all as well, just kind of an update on what we've been doing and what we're, here I'll give you kind of an idea of what we're going to do. In the City Commission report, I didn't talk about future plans, but, so we held a rain barrel and composter sale last year. We sold 27 rain barrels. This year, we're going to partner with the Kalamazoo River Watershed Council to bolster that, increase the amount of rain barrels that we're going to sell this year. So we're looking to start our own sale in June. The city has worked with Battle Creek to advertise their sale, so hopefully, you know, we can broaden our impact in the area, in the greater Kalamazoo River watershed. We worked with the Kalamazoo River Urban Wildlife Corridor Project, so that's a project of the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission to try to find a way to highlight the river. So it was interesting, the public comment we got earlier. So that, yeah, that's a plan. They brought together municipalities from across that, you know, who share the river, and just trying to figure out ways that we can make this river more of a feature for the region. City of Parks and Rec dredged Portage Creek, so now it's going to become more trout habitat. So they got rid of all the kind of the debris, the plant debris, kind of got to the sandy bottom there. So Millen Park, they're hoping to kind of turn into a trout destination. The state DNR does stock at Millen there, so there's some trout in that river for sure. We're going to launch Buzz in the Zoo again. The Buzz in the Zoo kickoff will be on May 16th. So soon you'll see the poster contest again, which is very popular. And again, Buzz in the Zoo is a movement away from No May and where other cities do that. And this is a more holistic and long-term vision for the stewardship of the kind of urban ecosystem. But same system there, you know, encouraging native plantings, getting folks to engage in citizen science programs like iNaturalist, commit to the Homegrown National Park, that type of stuff. We're going to continue to do invasive species removal events. So we did a lot at Woods Lake last year, Woods Lake and Reed Street, the parks there. We're going to keep hitting those two spots because those are spots that folks seem to show up in. There's also a form that can be filled out if a neighborhood or a group wants to do an invasive species removal project. They can fill out that form, and the city will provide gloves and buckets and dumpsters and loppers and things like that. The city has an invasive species monitoring program through iNaturalist. We'll continue to encourage that. So if you're out taking a walk, playing with our naturalists, you see an invasive species, you can snap a picture, and it'll get uploaded to a project that I oversee, and I'll be able to map out where and what invasive species are in the city of Kalamazoo. Worked with Relief and Oakwood, planting trees there. We're working with folks at Fraze Park to plant some trees there as well. That's coming up this year. We get silver maples off the list for approved tree plantings, and then, just working on better management of city-owned wellheads. So they're removing invasive species on wellheads. So this is property the city owns outside of the city to protect drinking water. Starting to steward those lands through some invasive species removal and other processes. Last year was kind of the year of compost. So working with Chris Broadbent, we placed compost tumblers in community gardens. We currently have them at the NACD, Parkview Hills, West Main Hill, Edison. So those were there for folks to use at the community gardens. You can put most plant material in there. You don't want to put a lot of meats or anything in there. But for those meats and other edible things, we now, again, we have the commercial compost system in Kalamazoo. So 322 East Stockbridge, residents can drop off their compost, and then within neighborhoods, there are embedded compost bins. All this is available online if you want to figure out where the bucket is, and all the accepted materials as well. We continue to expand the EPS recycling event. We're starting to collect a little bit more data on these events. So we average maybe 400 cars in the span of 3 hours. From 10 to 1. Usually folks start showing up at 9. So in addition to EPS foam collection, we also collect electronics, large cardboard, water filters, like dental products, and general recycling. So this program continues to grow. Again, the data we're collecting is number of cars and where people are from, and trying to figure out better ways to serve folks there. So the next one of those is on April 25th. I believe it's the 25th or 28th. Because I have, yep, that'll be the 25th. The 28th is an invasive, I'll talk about that later. We achieved Soul Smart Bronze. So Soul Smart is a national organization that looks at municipalities and determines how user-friendly their code is for installing solar panels. Bronze, as you guess, is the beginning. But we weren't on it at all last year. So worked with a student from Western. We created a checklist and worked with some of the building folks and got them some trainings on solar panels. We're going to look to move to silver there, which won't be too heavy a lift. But again, we're still trying to find ways and roadblocks that folks might be encountering when they put in solar panels and knocking down those roadblocks. We held 2 Solarize events with the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. Through those events, 14 residents added solar power to their home. Going to be a production of 33 kilowatts. So we'll continue to host those events. Those events are fairly popular, although it might wane as some tax incentives go away. But we'll continue to offer that to folks because Solarize events bring down the cost of the panels. So you can give it like a bulk buying program. So a solar developer comes to the event and agrees to cut the cost by, say 15%. These are just numbers I'm making up. 15% if 20 people sign up. So it encourages folks to sign up. They get a deal. Solar installers get business, and the grid gets a little bit cleaner. And again, we enrolled in the city Consumers Energy Large-Scale User Program. We'll look at some numbers there to see kind of the impact of that program and what we still need to do. One thing that I don't know if this city has really advertised, the new public safety station on Bryant Street is LEED certified. So folks over there worked hard to kind of make that building a little bit more environmentally friendly, carbon neutral, whatever action you say there. Again, still room to grow on other city buildings, but the city's moving in the right direction with LEED certification. And then we're working on expanding recycling at city facilities. Chris is doing a great job there. So the KPIs came up a little bit last time. We're looking to revamp some of these, as I've come on board and we have a new master plan. It's time to re-look at some of these KPIs, not necessarily getting rid of any of these, but maybe some clarifications and some additions. The city has 2 electric vehicles now. We are at 65% currently for the percentage of identified non-copper lead supply lines. So we probably want to adjust that goal out a little bit. The goal was 75% by 2032, and we're at 65% in 2026. So I think we can move that goal a little bit. But again, these are just the KPIs that are in the community sustainability plan that we're working towards.
Justin?
Yeah.
On that those indicators, Is there a space in there for something about air pollution?
I wouldn't say no. We'd have to know what that looks like for sure and who monitors that. But when we do these KPIs, it won't just me sitting in the dark trying to fill things out. We'll include folks.
Yeah,
So,
because if we're looking at new ones, I think that's an issue of significant public concern.
yeah, absolutely. These are active transportation numbers I get from Google EIE, Environmental Insight Explorer. It just shows that car trips are down, bike trips are up, and walking is up. And correlation is not causation, but it seems to fall in line with some of the street programs and things that we're doing here in the city. Net zero, I know you all want to discuss, so I'll try to blast through some of this. Again, looking at the city's emissions, and when I say the city's emissions, I mean municipal operations. Vast majority, 82%, are electrical related. Scope 2 is how we classify those, so that it's all electricity. So as we, electrify and get off natural gas and try and find renewable sources, we'll be able to shrink our footprint fairly quick here. So again, I just focused on scope 1 and 2 for these. Initially it was included scope 3, which is just a little bit too nebulous. We really can't control how much waste goes to the wastewater treatment plant and into a landfill at the moment. To be fairly, we can't stop people from flushing the toilets. So what can we control? Scope 1 and 2 generally. So these are the scope 1 and 2 numbers. You see it was kind of artificially low in year 1, and then it jumped up. We'll talk about kind of why these numbers are a little wonky there. So streetlights and traffic signals, it's probably seen our biggest decrease there. It's kind of tricky again because it's mostly consumers operated. So this is just what it looks like when you start swapping out old bulbs for new LED bulbs. Numbers start to trend down. Buildings, facilities, this one is artificially high in 2022 because, the decrease is artificial because in 2022 we had buildings that we no longer have, so we've torn down buildings, so they're not on our roll. So I wouldn't say that we can't continue to just tear down buildings to get to net zero. That's not a sustainable solution. But you see a decrease there. Vehicle fleet, you see the largest increase from 2022 to 2024, and again, there's more city vehicles on the road, more city vehicles doing things. But how do we do things better? Probably try to electrify our fleet. And energy use of the water and wastewater treatment plant continues to increase as we reach more residents. So again, the wastewater treatment plant treats the entire county. So if you're in Portage or anywhere else in the county, even stretching into Van Buren and Berry County, your waste comes to Kalamazoo, and Kalamazoo has, the carbon burden there of treating that material, using energy, and then disposing of that material.
Another question, Justin, on that one. How much of that's attributed to the doubling of the size of graphic packaging?
I couldn't give an exact number. I couldn't say there. You'd have to really dive into it. So I can't say. Again, just breakdowns from the changes here, 22% decrease streetlights, 5% decrease in buildings over the baseline. Vehicle fleet, 40% increase, and water treatment, 5% increase. One of the another successful programs the city launched is switching to biodiesel. So the city in 2024 was operating on biodiesel 11, so 11% biodiesel in their diesel mix. I think we were up to 17 this year, and there will be a 20 next year. And again, people like equivalencies. Those are a little weird too, but it's the savings there is equivalent to planting 4,500 trees that grow for 10 years. So the top line here is diesel use. If we were not using biodiesel, you'd see we'd kind of, in 2026, we'd ended up at 875 metric tons. But with the inclusion of biodiesel, we're looking at 743. So again, biodiesel, this is going into the snow plows and kind of the heavy-duty machinery the city operates, fire trucks and that. Stuff that we can't really electrify at the moment. So biodiesel is the next best option here. Gasoline use increase. So this is the biggest increase, and this is where I see the most kind of easiest room for improvement, again, one of the KPIs in the CSP is to have 100 electric vehicles by 2026. We bought our first 2 recently, so we have 98 to go. But as we electrify those vehicles, this gasoline number will drop, and we can see that this is the kind of the main variant or driver of the city's emissions currently. Again, you look at a building like City Hall, so this is kind of the data that I get to play with. You can see the top is MCF, that's metric cubic feet of natural gas used in City Hall. You can see a drop in June and pick up in November. So just trying to find ways to make the existing buildings more efficient. City Hall is significant, and it's a good place to start. And then you see the kilowatt hours there. All right, so the program, once we enroll in that program and that program kicks in and I receive RECs, renewable energy certificates, for the energy produced by the solar field that the city essentially invested in, our 36,000 metric tons of CO2e that we are responsible for will drop to 8. And that's just because we're paying for 48 million kilowatt hours generated by solar and wind. So just those 2 renewable, it's not anything clean coal or clean natural gas. It's just renewable and wind for this program. That'll drop our carbon footprint considerably. And then we still have work to do. We still have to figure out ways to shore up our efficiency and our natural gas or our gasoline use, but we'll be on track towards or closer to net zero emissions. Again, to put some numbers to this, folks are trying to say we don't need efficiency. The city spends $5 to $6 million a year on utilities, so gas and electricity. It's $5 to $6 million a year to power this city. So when we think about improvements too, when we think about that initial cost for replacing, pump houses or lift stations, generally that's older equipment, and if you're buying new, it's going to be more efficient. So, it seems like a lot of money now presented to City Commission, but if they approve it, it'll help us in the long run. Decarbonization, that's tricky. So decarbonization is electrifying things. Like your electric stove at home is a form of decarbonization because you're getting off gas, and when the grid gets cleaner, the biggest kind of carbon user that we have in the city is the downtown sidewalk heating system. So it's still trying to figure out ways to make that more efficient. And then, trying to get more city buildings to be LEED certified. What we're going to continue the biodiesel program. We're going to try to purchase electric vehicles. We're going to improve building efficiency. It's kind of, sustainability 101 there, but that's where we're at. And then these are Chris's numbers here for recycling. You can see recycling numbers are pretty steady. We've increased what can go into the recycling bin. I guess the biggest thing that folks don't know about, we've updated all this information, is the coffee cups. So all the to-go coffee cups can and should go into the recycling bin at your house. That's a really desirable material. That's virgin paper that hasn't been recycled yet, so the fibers are fairly long, and they like that because it can be recycled, quite a few times. Continuing to work to get more recycling bins out to people. If anyone doesn't have a recycling bin, they can call 311 and get a recycling bin placed at their place of residence if it's a single-family home or 3 residential units or fewer. Brush collection continues to be picked up. All the brush in the city is collected and composted by Republic, and they use it as cap for their landfills. So it's a decent enough way to use that material that everyone puts at the side of the curb. And as we approach windy, kind of seems like annually we get some straight line winds in May. All that material can go to the curb and get composted. Leaf collection. This year, as part of Buzz in the Zoo, we worked with folks who want to leave their leaves. Again, there's no requirement that folks rake their leaves in the city. We just ask that you remove leaves from storm drains and around your front yard there so it doesn't clog up. But the city offers the program. They offer collection of the leaves, but if anyone wants to keep their leaves, that's absolutely fine. All the leaves at the city are collected and composted by Morgan Compost and turned into dairy dew. So they're not going into a landfill or being thrown away. And then bulk trash numbers continue to grow. Chris and I are looking at ways to improve bulk trash on the city end, not necessarily your end, but do we figure out ways to recycle some of that material? And this is all coming up in the Imagine Kalamazoo Master Plan for 2035. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions or hear any concerns.
What's your source for biodiesel?
The actual supplier?
Yes.
I'll get back to you on that one, I'm not sure.
I have a question about who might we contact or someone contact regarding buildings that are closed but have very bright storm lights or outdoor lights and that nature that may be bothersome.
Yeah, folks could call 311 for that. You know, there are regulations on lights and where lights shine. And so yeah, if folks want to get that investigated, they can call 311 and they could open up a case and inspectors could go out and check that.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So a quick search, David, says Kalamazoo Oil, but I would double check that.
All right, thank you, Justin. Does not look like we have any other questions or comments. We have other unfinished business then. Let's see what we can do with that before we move to new business. And these are two items that John brought up last month. So I'll let John lead us on natural features property discussion.
I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. I think the program itself is a wonderful program. It's another checklist for people to do that. My concern on the natural features program is that it seems to be being more and more skewed towards consistent development. If you just look at some of the approvals that they've done in regards to specifically the youth sports complex, the NFP approved the further reduction of tree canopy cover, and fortunately the Zoning Board of Appeals vetoed that decision. And I know that there was some language changes within the NFP after it was approved by the public, and I would really just want to encourage the city and particularly our citizens to pay attention to that, and because it is very important that basic overlay just basically doesn't get continually to be watered down. So that's my input on that.
Do we have other input here? Did you have something, Rita?
No, I found it. I was looking for the natural features board and information, but I found it here on the website, the city website.
What might be a good way to proceed, John, if you want to write up some type of a recommendation that I think we have some general agreement that we like the idea, we could discuss a specific recommendation and advance it to the city?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Thank you.
Then the green space preservation, do you want to give us your thoughts here?
Yeah, there's many in our community, and I'm in complete agreement, that feel it's time that a separate zoning classification be created that allows the property owners to have their property designated a green area. Right now within the city, it stops at residential. I understand the dynamics and connecting the dots between the zoning, but there is no option available for any private property owner or the city to designate a specific piece of property with green zoning. I don't have a lot of agreed upon definitions of what green zoning is, but a lot of the laws and regulations have been written a long time ago. We're into 2026 now, and so the reality of our environment and the reality of our health is vastly different than it was at the time that a lot of these things were created. So I think we should really be forward-thinking and looking at the future and establish a green zone. I think there's a lot of connection points. If you look at the climate plan, the sustainability plan, the deer issue, water pollution, you know, there's a lot of reasons if you really start connecting the dots on why this would make sense. And I just really don't understand on why we can't move forward with this to establish something, because it's even if somebody wants to create it, they can't because it's not available.
I've heard a lot of discussion from people in the community about this issue in support of it. Do we have other people who want to comment on this?
Actually, I'd like to have a little bit more information about exactly the benefits and the hurdles of getting that kind of designation.
So how do we move forward with that? I know there was a suggestion to create a subcommittee to discuss this so we can put together specifics. I would support that.
Do we have anybody who's willing to, if we can get a committee of a couple people, to look up some examples of other cities that have some sort of green zoning? Are you interested, Rachel? Put you on the spot?
I think at this time, I don't think I can take on one more committee, but thank you.
Okay. Anybody else interested? Luke, you want to give it a try? Okay. Okay, so what same kind of thing, if you and Luke can just start talking, find out what some examples might look like and how we might be able to bring those here, then we can keep this discussion going.
Yeah. David, what was your specific question?
Benefits. Sorry. The benefits and the hurdles of establishing green space designations.
Okay. Can we incorporate that within the examples?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be another item on our unfinished business for next month. Yeah. So even if it doesn't fit directly within one of our regular committee reports, it'll be a unfinished business item.
Thank you.
Any other comments on unfinished business before we move to new business? Let me look real quick here, just one second. I'm sorry, Katie, I'm looking for your last name. I can't find it. Okay, so before we talk about the metal fire, I think it is worth taking a few minutes to consider Katie Meyer-Topper, right, as an associate member of the committee. Justin, is there anything more to it than what I said? Basically, it's committee membership without a vote. Okay, so do we have, so well, first we'll take a motion whether or not we want to approve it, then discussion, and then we'll vote. So do we have a motion? And second, first?
I will give a motion to make Katie an associate member.
Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, following the rules before we vote, that means now we discuss it. Anybody want to discuss?
No, I think it's great.
I would just like to say that I think it's a great idea that we can expand our committee in a way that's creative and allows us to draw people in who aren't residents but are obviously very involved in the Kalamazoo community, the Kalamazoo County. Political lines don't divide the environment. I mean, they just are, you know, they're great for politicians, but not for the environment. So yeah, I would say welcome.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. The air pollution or water quality issues don't stop at the city boundaries. You know, bringing Katie in could be first step in having some kind of a coordinated ECC that brings townships, county, and the city together to share ideas about, shared concerns. So, okay, so all in favor of extending associate council member status to Katie?
Aye.
All right, you're on.
Aye.
Yeah, so now you're very important. Okay. Yeah, and we do have empty seats, so if you want to join us up here, you can. And just know that you're able to participate. And then let's move to the metal fire issue. I'll let other people start if they'd like.
If I could, I would just, there, microphone. I just wanted to thank folks in the audience for very thoughtful information and feedback, because it's kind of a wake-up call when you have something that's really out of the ordinary, and it raises a lot of questions. I mean, the first question that I thought was very good was, what do we know about the follow-up on air quality? The answer is we don't know much, or we haven't received much information. How do we end up with potentially polluting industries right next to the Kalamazoo River? That's a much bigger issue, but also of concern. I don't think we can just ask them to move politely and have something change. But, the nature of the fire, we don't know the cause, but we suspect it was lithium batteries. And this is becoming a universal issue, not just for those processing automotive and metal, recycling. If you talk to anybody in the recycling business, the commercial recycling stuff that gets picked up at the curb has this stuff in it. I've seen video from almost every materials recycling facility in the nation with lithium battery fires. They're insidious. They're in almost anything from child's toys to laptops and, things that don't need to go in the waste stream. So we have, an overriding larger issue. The other thing I wanted to mention, that for all of us environmentalists, this doesn't settle very well. I teach hazmat training to all kinds of people, police, fire, hazardous waste workers, and there's a hierarchy of responsibility that goes like this. If you're a first responder, your number one responsibility is to make sure you don't get injured and go down. Your second is your team. The third is any other life involved in this. Well, this could be an accident, a fire, a spill, car, anything like that. And last and least on this is the environment. So it's always after the fact, unfortunately, that we start to look for where the pollution went. And this is, what would you say, a bigger issue than just making a recommendation from us to the city commission. It involves our fire department, our first responders, in how they are trained to respond to these emergencies. I don't know the air monitoring capabilities of our police fire department. I know that they have some, but I'm not sure to the extent of that. We also have a hazmat team that could have been called in, but I don't believe they were. So, that kind of frames the picture. You raised a lot of good issues, and I think that the tendency is for us to forget it in a very short period of time, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, is to try to be, a little, what we say, stone in their shoe, to say, well, hey, maybe we can continue to have this discussion over a longer period of time.
Other thoughts?
One of the thoughts that I had, and again, it was posed by the audience, and I don't know, what are the laws and codes of a facility like Kalamazoo Metal Recycling, and really is who is monitoring these? Is there a city staffer or a city program that actually pays attention to this stuff? Is this something that should be added or included within the city responsibilities. So we have a sustainability plan. Is that part of the sustainability plan? Maybe I'm defining sustainability a little too broadly, but I think that's a beautiful question.
No, it's not part of my job to inspect these facilities, and we have zoning and code enforcement officials who work on facilities like this.
We do have, I remember not too long ago, discussion about changes to or addition to the position of an emergency manager. Not the emergency manager like the Michigan emergency manager, but the person to respond to emergencies for the city. I think it was primarily in the context of fears of terrorism, but also environmental emergencies. I remember there was a discussion about that, but that, does anybody? So I think what we need to do is, because we can't not do anything about this. I think the most pressing issues, in my opinion here, are this happened. We can't go back in time and make it not have happened. We need to get to a point to prevent it in the future, but first this happened. We need to know what burned. Somebody at the city has to know that. If somebody at the city doesn't know that, that's a problem. We need to know what was released. If all the city is measuring is PM 2.5, I mean, frankly, that's shameful, because that's not the most dangerous stuff that's coming out of a industrial waste fire. There's all kinds of toxins that are being released into the air, and if that's not being monitored, everybody at the city should be just ashamed. What I read in the releases was about how much water was used to put out the fire. Is it only water that was used? It was only water.
There was no fire suppression foams used. There was no use of fire suppression foams.
Okay.
So we're not, and if they did, they wouldn't be using PFAS foams anymore.
But there's also the question of, PFAS is the family of C8 compounds, but they've been replaced by C12 compounds and others which are proven to be just as deadly, but not yet regulated out of use. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But, so if it was only water, that's better. But as the person from the audits pointed out, where did that water go and what did it carry? That's, again, it's a question that is just blatantly irresponsible to not attempt to answer. Then we have residents who are downwind from this. We have people whose health could be affected by that contaminated water if it's contaminated. What is the purpose of a city government if it's not going to try to protect the health of its residents from toxins? I think the city absolutely has to be able to find out what the aftermath of this effect is and talk to the residents who are being affected. If we have, I don't think we're at a point where we can write a recommendation today, but I feel like we need to have some way to get the city to answer these questions before it's too late.
Does anyone know if this has been discussed in that region's neighborhood association area or neighborhood association meeting? What is that?
And so the neighborhood association that would be most relevant is the East Side Neighborhood Association. I know our audience member who had to leave I don't think she's in the board, but she does work with them. Do you happen to know if the neighborhood association addressed this?
I don't think they've had a chance to meet since then, so I don't think they've had a meeting, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
I can look for what date the neighborhood association meeting is and let you guys know.
Okay. So what do other people think? I think we have to pose some questions at the least.
I think we are actually at a point where we can write to the city saying that as this committee sits, there is a lot of, excuse me, public concern and interest, and make a recommendation that the city commission make a public statement as to what's being done to investigate this, and or if it is being investigated, at what stage is the investigation, what can we expect out of it? I think that it's not too early to act just in a blanket way to reflect all of the people. I mean, I know that there's other people that are asking this question that didn't show up today, but thanks for showing up. But I think that we're at a point that we can ask that, put it on the record, that there's concerned citizens. I didn't see anybody at the city commission meeting addressing that, but I didn't watch the entire city commission meeting. So I don't know. I say let's move forward just in a general way.
Rita, were you gonna? Luke?
Maybe I'm missing something, but it sounds like an opportunity for the city to partner with groups like the Institute for Public Scholarship, who are already doing air monitoring, to try to get organizations like the Recycler to implement air monitoring stations at their locations, and maybe even do more to partner with IPS to maybe get additional air monitoring tools that allow them to not just measure PM 2.5, but other things as well.
David, sorry.
Go ahead.
Was that a motion?
Well, no, it was.
So we're pre-motion stage.
Yeah, pre-motion stage. I'm just throwing that out there, thinking that, it'd be worthwhile to get something on the record from this committee that reflects the concerns that we're hearing from city residents.
Luke makes a good point. Go ahead, Rita.
In response to Luke, I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, 269 Air Quality at this moment has the bandwidth to only monitor particulate matter 2.5. We are very community-centered. We do not want or like to make decisions for the community, so we invite all community members to our Kickback and Breathe so that we can discuss any concerns or monitor placements. And our next one will be held, I can't remember the date, March 25th and 26th, and it's located on our website. It is specifically for healthy homes, but we will have one every single month on the fourth Wednesday.
Thank you. Okay, so thinking about where David started us there for a potential motion, my thought at this point, we need the city to at least attempt to answer what potential air pollution was released, not just PM 2.5, but other things. What potential water pollution has been washed into the waterways from the fire, and how is the city going to communicate information to residents, particularly in affected regions, and how is the city going to continue to monitor it? Are those our kind of the key points?
And yes, well, I can't say yes for everybody, but one thing I noticed in the article is that they did talk about keeping an eye on the oil that was released, so maybe suggesting, while looking at the river and other waters that it could have ran off into, add those particulates or the matter that has been released, including oil, but others too.
Yeah, I think that's the key point. The city has mentioned for air, PM 2.5, they've mentioned for water, oil, and that's a great place to start, but that's a 6th grade science project. The city can do better. Go ahead. Amy is something of an expert on this air pollution topic, so go ahead.
Hold on one second. I think we got to turn your mic on.
Is it on? Oh, it's on. Not just thinking beyond PM 2.5, but also the composition of the PM 2.5 is really important. Because like if you think about a recycling facility, it would be like whether they're heavy metals would be the first one I would think of. And so that actually would be captured in the PM 2.5, but you're just not getting that sort of information when you're looking at the entire category at once. So like a speciated analysis. And then in addition, like other things that wouldn't necessarily be captured, like volatile organic compounds that don't attach themselves to a particle, because then they won't be in particulate matter. So just that clarification.
That's a great clarification. Thank you. Always helps to have smart people around. So if we ask for, along the lines of what David said, but we want to clarify, we specifically want to know what the content of that air pollution was in terms of both what is the 2.5, what's in that 2.5, what else is released into the air, what has been released into the water in addition to the oil, how are people being kept up to date, and how will the city continue to monitor the issue. Justin, did you get those points? Okay. Oh, yeah, they'll be on the, they'll be in the minutes.
I'll wait for the recording, but yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Our associate member.
So I've done a lot of research on battery energy systems and the fires that have been going on everywhere. And the reason being is because they're trying to put one in Ashtamo. But I'm really connected with the Moss Landing residents. And what they did was surface wipe sampling. So if that's a suggestion I have, that for people in probably a 5-mile radius from this fire, they can take surface wipes and then they can test the soil around their houses, and that way they can see what kind of contaminants could have fallen. Because once it's airborne, if it is a lithium, if it was lithium ion batteries, that's a way to detect. So it's just an idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. My thought on the way this will progress is, first we're going to ask the city for, how they're doing the monitoring, what they're monitoring for, and request that they do better. And then if we're not content with the response we get, which will probably be the case, but I hope I'm surprised, then I think we move to what we recommend are some best practices that should be considered. Does that?
I'd like to add something. I forgot their name who spoke on this, but they talked about why our industry is still located on the river. And I don't know if, John, you know this for zoning, but is there any regulations that stop building along the river? So, we're at where we are now with these buildings, but in the future, do we have any protection along our rivers?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll find out. So my assumption would be no.
Yeah, because if those potentially hazardous facilities are already on the river, then the zoning is going to be created to match that existing use. And that's going to just create the opportunity for more. Yeah. So that is an important point for us to potentially discuss, but I'm not sure that we can do it here at this point. Yes, Commissioner Hess.
Hi, really quickly, I'm Jean Hess, City Commissioner, and been in touch with some city staff, and I want you to let you know that city staff have been in contact with Eagle for air quality and water resource divisions. And as of last week, Eagle reported to city staff they saw no issues with contaminated runoff. That's different probably than the air quality and the runoff that's happening within the 5 miles. And COO Lamb will be happy to follow up with staff as well. So yeah, looking definitely forward to holding the city accountable, but I think Eagle was brought in right away, and they were looking right away. I mean, I saw the smoke, and I appreciate your oversight of that, and I appreciate everything that you saw there on the east side. I can't imagine. So thank you for bringing this up. Appreciate it.
So I am in favor of a motion to get a formal response. I think that is, I think that would just is valuable to get, something on the record. Are people in favor of that general motion? We can work out the specific details, but in general, does that sound?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to take a try at putting together a communication, or we just let Justin?
What I would need to do this is we have to put a motion together here and vote on it here. Justin is allowed to tweak it to make it, properly phrased, but he still has to get some motion from the committee to forward. So if somebody would like to make a motion, chair is not supposed to make motions, so I'd need somebody else to make a motion.
Well, we have too many shy people, but I'll make the motion that we ask Justin to forward a communication expressing the concerns that David has enumerated.
So before we move forward, Justin, is that sufficient?
Yeah, and then I'll format it the way I formatted the other one, and I'll get that sent over.
Okay, so we have the previous one, and we've okayed that, but if Justin does send around a draft of this, please, everybody know, respond to that if you can. And Justin phrased that email in such a way that no response means people approve it. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion before we vote? All in favor?
Okay.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Approved. All right. Hopefully we'll have something to report back. Thank you very much for bringing those concerns to us. Yeah. When I was out walking my dog, looked up, I'm like, why is there like a city block size column of black smoke coming up into the air? It was frightening. Okay, that covers most of our points. All we have left is we're going to go around, give our final comments, then we'll open up public comments one more time, and then we'll be done. So we'll start with Luke. Any final comments?
Nope. Thank you all for inviting me up here. It's good to made it through my first meeting. Thanks.
We'll see you next month.
One thing that came to mind, I know we've had, I think, a lawyer come in and maybe another person that works alongside the city on these big matters. I'm wondering if possible, I know, John, you said you'd get information about zoning, but is it possible to have someone on the industry side of the city come in and discuss related topics to the environment and how industry and environment may run off on each other, I guess? Is that making sense?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk to folks in the office and get someone to come to talk about zoning, especially, and maybe inspections there. if that would work. I don't know how much they'd be able to speak to the intersection between the environment and zoning, but I could work on getting staff here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when you get some ideas, Justin, you can shoot those around to the committee so we can think about how they fit with the schedule.
No comments for me.
My comment, the Kalamazoo Earth Day activities are getting ready to go. For information about a large number of the activities, you can go to kalamazooearthday.com, and there will be information, activities, schedules, how to sign up, etc.
I have no comments.
No further comments.
No further comments.
And I'm looking at my email. I do see that we just got the February minutes sent back to us again. So everybody make sure to look at those before next month. Before we wrap, let's give public another chance. So anybody on phone lines, I'm going to read you that number again, 1-888-382-9556. Again, 1-888.
The afflicted breathe, the many deaths. And the vaccines have changed the world, absolutely. But polio is not going.
Somebody figured it out. Yeah, I'll read that one more time, 1-888-382-9556. Is that a caller? Okay, so let's have our caller. You're speaking with the Environmental Concerns Committee. Do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. This is Iris Potter, and I'm calling regarding the meeting tonight in terms of many of the issues. But first of all, I'm a co-founder of Kalamazoo Remembers, which was founded after the 2010 Enbridge oil spill that many of you might remember. That was extremely devastating to our river. And what we do today, among other things, is work the best we can to protect the river. So on that note, listening to and also knowing about the Kalamazoo Metal Recyclers issue, it's very concerning. We really can't allow any more pollution in the river. We absolutely cannot. We have businesses along there who have been cited for it by the state, and I'm very curious what Eagle has on its mind for this place. I do strongly support the letter that you're going to send, and I think that we need to know everything. In terms of code enforcement, if there's a code enforcement officer, what kind of code enforcement is there for a business like this? And what kind of fines do businesses get? Or do we rely just on what Eagle does in terms of their fines and what they are requiring a business to do? If we don't have fines, then I think the city needs to institute fines to all these businesses along the river when they pollute. And we know there have been others that have done that. So I do support you going forth with your letter, full force with that. I really do. It's very important that we know. And yes, the city should have made a statement already. I also wanted to highlight that Monica Brothers is the air quality person for Eagle in this area, and her phone number is 269-312-2535, and I encourage folks to call at any time you have issues with air quality. Several of us have called in over the years for another business along the river. I want to thank John Cruiser for both the clear definition and summary of the Natural Features Protection Overlay, and also